Welcome to the Costa Property Podcast, the podcast that turns your dreams of owning a piece of paradise on the Costa del Sol into reality. I'm Warner Laurie, and I'm joined by my co-host and wives, Sandra Laurie.
Join us as we embark on navigating the ins and outs of real estate and relocation to this beautiful region.
We're not just about market trends, we're about sharing real-life experiences, because we know the struggle firsthand, and I've helped many people navigate this challenge also.
If you're dreaming of your perfect Costa del Sol home and want to get real, no-frills, expert advice, then you're absolutely in the right place. Join us each week as we share honest insights and information that will guide your journey. Now, if you're British and you're dreaming of moving to Spain, but every headline, forum, or Facebook comment makes you feel like the door has been slammed shut since Brexit, this is the episode that you need to hear. If you've been feeling stuck between your dream life in Spain and the weight of immigration forms and confusion, well, this is the episode that you need in order to start moving forward. Welcome, Melanie.
Thank you, Sandra.
I'm delighted to have you here with us today.
I'm delighted to be here.
It's pretty hot outside, but hopefully we're a little bit cooler in here as we dive into this very important topic. And I'm thrilled that you're here to join us today to dive into this topic, especially for our clients, because it's such an important one. Often when I find that when they come and they start working with us, it just causes quite a lot of overwhelm in the beginning because they just don't really know what to do. So today, hopefully with your support, we can help them to get started and how to navigate their big move to Spain. Are you up for the challenge?
I'm up for the challenge.
Fantastic. So I guess let's start with the obvious. Okay, so since Brexit, especially if you're British and you've had your eyes on relocating to the Costa del Sol, what has really changed for Brits if they're planning to relocate to Spain?
Okay, so British passport holders, they now need to apply for a visa to live and work in Spain. So that's what's actually changed. So they're now considered non-EU citizen, and they're not the only nationality of non-EU citizens. So now they need to look at the visa and what visa is suitable for their situation. Now, the most popular visa is the non-lucrative visa. Okay, and that's basically the non-working visa. So ideally, it's suited to anybody who is retired or anybody who wants to move to Spain and doesn't have the intention of working.
Okay, very important point.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody is, intending on using the non-lucrative visa as part of their entry to come to Spain, and they're sitting in the UK at the moment, what should they do first? What do they need to think about now?
The first thing they need to think about is, when do I want to move to Spain?
Okay.
And what have I also got going on? Am I going to sell my property?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have timing going on there. Am I going to buy a property in Spain? And also, I want to apply for the visa. So which one of those things am I doing first? Of course,
Yes.
They can buy a property and they don't need a
Yes.
visa for that. So when they look at when do they want to move to Spain, what they need to do is think about the planning for the visa in advance. And I always say allow at least a couple of months to start gathering the documentation in advance of applying for the non-lucrative visa at the Spanish consulate in the UK. Now, obviously, there are 3 Spanish consulates in the UK, and depending where you reside in the UK will depend which consulate covers your particular area. Now, those 3 consulates will have different requirements, which is probably why you hear all the inconsistencies that are going on there. So the first point is, which consulate will you be attending? Okay. And you plan in advance, a couple of months at least, planning that documentation. And then you will attend the consulate appointment with that documentation. And then you wait for the visa approval. The visa approval is up to 3 months. And then when you've received your visa approval, you then move to Spain and you apply for your TIE, which is your foreigner's ID, residency permit, which will be valid for 1 year.
Okay, perfect. So that all sounds very logical, right? Very simplistic. But I think you and I both know that in reality, sometimes life can throw little curveballs in the way.
Yeah.
So if somebody is, in the process, they see really clearly, okay, I need to find my local consulate. That's my first step. I prepare my documentation. I apply for my visa. What curveballs should they start to prepare for? What should they be aware of?
They need to understand what the requirements are, the documentation requirements for the non-lucrative visa.
Okay.
Don't second guess those documentation requirements, and also make sure you're up to date.
Okay.
Because they do change.
Of course.
So they need to know and understand exactly what documentation requirements are. For example, the financial resources. What exactly is required for that? The private medical insurance. What exactly is required for that? Not travel insurance. We're talking private medical insurance with a provider authorised to operate in Spain.
Yes.
And then there's all the other, depending on their situation, if they're coming across with family members, so dependent children as well, there's documentation requirements for that.
Okay. So often people get confused about the order in which they should do things. Melanie, what comes first?
This is true. There is a great confusion out there as to, okay, do I sell my UK property first, or do I start the visa process? When do I start that visa process? I would say sell the UK property first.
Okay.
If you need those funds to fund the non-lucrative visa, especially, because if you start the visa process and you haven't sold that UK property and the UK property sale falls through, then you're going to have rework
Yes.
on your visa
Because
process.
you get a time frame, right?
Because, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're reliant on that UK property sale. Okay. And so, yes, it means that once you've sold your UK property for a period of time where there's an overlap with applying for the visa and getting the visa approval, that you're going to have to find rented accommodation, say, in the UK. But it's far easier
Yes.
to do that than get the visa, the house falls through, and then you can't move to Spain because you're waiting on this UK property sale.
I think you're completely right. And, I really appreciate your take and your honesty on that, because often I see people getting overwhelmed, putting unnecessary pressure on themselves because they're trying to do too many things in sequence. And let's be honest, this is a huge decision. It's a huge move.
Absolutely.
You don't need to necessarily be adding additional pressure on yourselves by not necessarily having the right sequence in order. So I really appreciate that. It's sell the UK property first if that's what you need to do, if you need that to fund your move and support your visa application, and then take it from there in terms of your own chain of events. I think that's really valuable. Is there anything else from your perspective that people really need to consider about the non-lucrative visa if they are applying for that visa?
One of the stumbling points for people is that on the visa application form, so when they're applying for the visa, they fill out the visa application forms. And on there, they need to put a Spanish address.
Okay.
And sometimes people get stuck on this to say, well, hang on a minute, I want visa approval first. Why do I need to give a Spanish address? They need to have an idea in which area you intend to reside in Spain, because what happens is when you apply for the non-lucrative visa at the Spanish consulate via the BLS Visa Centre, those documents are sent down the line to the foreigner's office in the area where you've actually put the Spanish address there. So they need to know which foreigner's office. Now, the good news is that they do not need proof at this stage, proof of the Spanish address, proof that you're going to live there. So often clients have family members that are already in Spain that have allowed them to use their Spanish address. Nothing's going to get sent there. Or a friend said, yeah, you can use my, so they can put that on the form. They do not need to live at that address when they move to Spain.
Okay, good news then. That's very positive.
Yes, it is. It is positive.
So essentially what you're saying is identify if you're going to be in the area where you have an address of a family member or a friend that you can utilise as part of your application, and then start your more serious search about your specific house a little bit further down the line.
Yes, because further down the line, you are going to need to have the proof of address. And of course, if they are buying a property, even if they haven't completed in Spain, they can use that address,
Of course.
on the visa application form.
Okay. Really, really tangible, sensible advice. Thank you very much. So, non-lucrative visa, I think you've walked us through really, really well everything that we need to consider about that particular visa. If somebody is looking at relocating, are there other types of visas that they need to consider if they feel that they don't, let's say they want to work in Spain? We know that non-lucrative visa isn't necessarily for you if you want to build a career and you're maybe in a different place of your life. What do they need to think about?
Well, if they want to work in Spain, it depends what type of work, whether they want to be self-employed in Spain or whether they want to work for a company in Spain. Now, if they want to work for a company in Spain as an employee, it is the employer that needs to obtain approval from the Foreigners Office to employ a non-EU citizen.
Okay,
So that's the first step. So they've got to talk about that with the employer here in Spain.
Okay.
And then once they've got approval to work in Spain as an employee of a company, I mean, the typical one there are the private schools out here that require the English teachers because of the English curriculum. So that's work visa employed by a Spanish company. You've also got the self-employed visa. The self-employed visa are for those that wish to set up a business in Spain.
Yes.
And they would register as self-employed. The very first step of this, a self-employed visa, is a business plan. And it needs to be a viable business plan.
Okay.
Allow at least 2 to 3 months to get that business plan together. And you will need a professional economist to help you with that business plan. So whether it's an existing business that you've got in the UK and you want to expand that into Spain, that all needs to go into the business plan. And then the next step is once that you have the business plan, you then go to the Spanish consulate, and you apply for approval of the business plan. Now, the downside to that is there's no turnaround time for that business plan.
Okay.
So it could take 6 months. It could take 11 months.
Right.
So there's a hold up there. And there's also no guarantee of approval of that business plan. So it is worth spending time on that business plan to make sure it is truly viable. And then if it's approved, then it's just a formality of actually applying for the self-employment visa, going back to the consulate, applying for the self-employment visa again, and generally they come through in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
And you move to Spain and you register as self-employed and you apply for the TIE card, of course, and then you start working.
That's really interesting. So it's important that if that is somebody's pathway and they are going down the self-employment route, but they want to establish or bring their business to Spain, they should not get so fixated on a timeline. It's going to take as long as it takes.
It is. And if somebody is looking at buying a business in Spain and working as self-employed for that business, that there is going to be a delay between them buying it and getting approval. But the good news is with an existing business, if the books are good, then the business plan is going to look good as well. And they can see that it's a business that's already up and running.
So there's some things to definitely take into consideration if that's the route that you're going to buy something viable that's been existing and operating and has proof that it's been operating to a good standard. That will definitely, I guess, make your path easier, right? You would imagine.
Absolutely, because they can see that it's been doing well and so forth. So
really good. Now, if somebody wants to go that path and they're bringing family members or dependents with them, what should they think about?
Well, with the self-employment visa, they cannot add dependent family members. Okay. So children under the age of 18 can apply for the non-lucrative visa.
Okay.
So they would have to apply for a separate visa.
So from a sequence of events, it would be get your security around your self-employment status first and then work on the non-lucrative for your family members to be 100% sure.
Get that approval. Get approval of the self-employment business report.
Very good. And so that covers that pathway. And I know that following the press and media recently, and I'm no expert, so I will rely on your support here, there was certain changes to legislation this year that, are important for people if they are considering a move in the near future, right?
Yes. So from the 20th of May,
Okay.
there was some new legislation that came in, and one of them in particular affects the non-lucrative visa.
Okay.
And it's the renewal periods. Okay. So we talk about the non-lucrative visa up front, and we talk about for a married couple, for example, they need to show financial resources of €36,000 equivalent, okay, to reside in Spain for 1 year.
Yeah.
And then what you do after 1 year, you can renew for a period of 2 years and then renew for another period of 2 years.
Okay.
Now, the renewal of the 2 years, originally there was not a requirement to have spent more than 180 days in Spain to qualify for renewal. In fact, they actually removed it at one stage. And with effect from the 20th of May, now they're saying to qualify for the renewal of the non-lucrative visa for the 2-year period, you must have spent more than 183 days per calendar tax year in Spain to qualify for the 2-year renewal.
Got you.
So the calendar year, January to December. So that effectively makes them Spanish tax residents.
Sure. So that's important to take into consideration.
It is important because anybody now that's thinking of starting the non-lucrative visa, so some people wanted to spend half the time in Spain, half the time, say, in the UK, wanted to keep tax residency in the UK. Well, they can still do this year on the non-lucrative visa, but they've got to think about the renewal.
Sure, so it's forcing them to think about their long-term plans, maybe when they thought they could be a little bit more flexible.
Yes.
I got you. That's very interesting for people to know. And as you say, that was legislation that was brought in May of this year, so potentially something that not everybody is as up to date with yet. So it's important that they think about that for their long-term planning too. What about then options for EU spouses?
Okay, so if you're an EU citizen and you're married to a non-EU citizen, so that could be a British citizen, and you wish to move to Spain and reside in Spain, then the legislation states that the EU citizen, if they have the intention of spending more than 90 days, 3 months in Spain, living in Spain, then they must register for EU Spanish residency.
Got you.
An EU citizen will apply for what's commonly known as the green card.
Sure.
So they apply for EU Spanish residency at the police station.
Okay.
And once they have that EU Spanish residency, then a family member application can be presented electronically. We present it electronically to the Foreigners Office.
Okay.
The Foreigners Office in the area in which, so here at Malaga, where they reside, for a family member spouse as a non-EU citizen. So they're basically piggying back off the EU citizen of their spouse's residency there.
Okay, understood.
And they take, because they're presented electronically, we do them as legalised, authorised representatives. We present them electronically direct to the Foreigners Office for approval. Approvals take up to 3 months. And then once approval comes through, then they apply for, here we go, the TIE card. Lots of different TIE cards here. It's not, depending on the type of residency. And that will give them the right to live and work in Spain. And so they will have EU citizens' rights. So both their residencies will be valid for 5 years.
Okay.
And after 5 years, if they've been consistently residing in Spain for the previous 5 years, they can then apply for permanent residency here in Spain.
Okay. And the spouse that is piggybacking, let's call it that, are there certain things that they should think about in advance of making the family member application?
There are. You've got to remember that the EU citizen is the one with the rights.
Yes.
Okay. So the requirement is when that non-EU spouse application goes in, it's the person who has the EU citizens' rights that needs to show they've got sufficient financial resources for both of them to reside in Spain.
Okay.
So when the EU citizens goes to the police station and they hand over their documents, and they'll think that's quite a breeze.
Yeah.
But now we're actually going under the nose of the Foreigners Office.
I see.
So more documentation is required. So the Foreigners Office are going to be asking, so are you working here in Spain? They're more interested what the EU citizen is doing in Spain, and to make sure that they do not become a burden on the Spanish state.
Absolutely. So the responsibility is on the EU citizen.
Yeah, so it cannot be perceived that the non-EU citizen is the main source of financial resources.
Okay, that's important
because that
to know.
then looks like the non-EU citizen or the EU citizen is dependent on the non-EU. You can't have it that way round.
Okay.
And one of the tests, certainly in Malaga Foreigners Office, is that they are going to be looking to see that they truly have the intention of residing in Spain.
Okay, so they're long-term plans, and, how do they assess that?
The one that they'll look for everyday spending activity in Spain, where you're living. They'll also sort of anything that you've, like receipts for anything, just to make sure that you truly are residing in Spain. And bank statements reveal all anyway.
Of course. So it's important that, they want to assess that your intentions are what you say they are, and you need to be able to prove that.
And your passport will also show, because
course.
the non-EU citizen will also have stamp in, stamp out of passport. So they're looking for that consistently residing in Spain. And I recommend that if you are going to move to Spain and you are not an EU citizen and with a non-EU spouse, that you remain in Spain until that procedure has completed.
Okay, so it's important for you as the EU citizen to remain here, as much as you can to support that application going through. Okay, that's a great tip, because I would imagine people might have the intention of, I'll submit the application and I'm free to move and get on with my life until I hear back.
Yes, yeah. And there is also the misconception that people will say, well, I've got an EU passport, whether it's an Irish, I can stay here, as long as I... Well, actually, an EU passport isn't under, it's not stamped in, not stamped out. So there's no control over how long they've been here in Spain.
Correct.
However, when you've got a non-EU citizen off the back of that, then that passport stamping, that will show up.
That's been really interesting. Thank you for going through that in detail, because I see that scenario now more and more, which is amazing. Something I want to, gauge your perspective on is, I hear a lot from people that they have a mindset that this is going to be difficult. Going through the process and the motions of deciding what visa is right for me and going through that process, it's going to be so difficult. Bureaucracy in Spain is a headache. It's just going to be a nightmare. Is that a myth?
Well, it is a myth if you're trying to navigate this yourself and you are also checking constantly social media for this, that and the other, and all these different opinions that are coming through, and you don't know where to start.
Yes.
So yes, it is a myth. What I would recommend is that you speak to somebody, a professional, that deals with this on a day-to-day basis to qualify what type of visa is appropriate for your situation. What are the requirements? Do you meet the requirements? And part of getting, whether it's any of these type of residencies or a visa, the most important part is the documentation. Execution of the documentation, timing of the documentation is key for approval.
Sure.
Whether it's a visa or whether it's an EU citizen or a non-EU citizen, picking back off there, it is the documentation, and you do need to understand fully what those documentation requirements are. Don't second guess them. And of course, we have a lot of inconsistency out there, but the good news is we know what those inconsistencies are. Yes. And I don't know how people manage to keep up with all these changes if they're not dealing with this on a 100%. Day-to-day basis.
I think that's such a important point. Like, this is a huge change in your life. It's a huge move. So why would you deprioritize that and go at it alone? It just doesn't make sense to me. Hire the supportive professionals and get the help that you need. Take the headaches away. And also, if you're somebody who doesn't like admin, as you say, be prepared to invest time in your admin system.
Well, absolutely. I mean, with any visa, with any country, I mean, even if it's a visa, someone going into the UK, visas, it's immigration, they all come with paperwork. You will not be able to get away from the paperwork. But what's important is that you have the correct paperwork. And if you've got somebody navigating that paperwork for you and they're guiding, you let them guide you through this paperwork. Let them take the strain of everything.
Absolutely.
Okay, particularly, and it's not unheard of, that they might ask for an additional document. Okay, they might have overlooked something. That's not unheard of. And again, you're going to need support for that. Don't second guess what they're asking for, how to reply to that with something that you've submitted at that appointment, and they're asking for it again. How do you deal with that situation? Well, you need somebody to come back to.
Yeah,
on
totally
that.
agree with you.
You need that support to get you right the way through until you have that TIE card in your hand.
I love that. That's amazing. Melanie, if there are people watching today and they really want to get in touch with you because they would like to discuss your support in navigating their own process, how can they do that?
They can contact us. I mean, if they look on our website, My Lawyer in Spain website, they'll also see on our blog section, you'll also see all the visa section, our leaflets and so forth. But they can email us at inquiries@mylawyerinspain.com.
Brilliant.
And you'll also, on the website, you'll see the contact number there. We can arrange a consultation. It is better to pre-arrange that
For sure.
consultation and just go through what they qualify, what their situation is, and which visa or residency is right for them.
So there you have it. Pop on to the My Lawyer in Spain website and book an appointment to have a consultation with Melanie or one of the team members there. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Sandra.
It's been an amazing and insightful discussion, and I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy agenda to come and talk to us about visas today. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for stopping by. At WL Costa Properties, we don't just find you a property. We work with lawyers like Melanie and her team at My Lawyer in Spain to make sure the legal side is done right from the beginning. Thank you so much for listening into today's episode on the Costa Property Podcast. Another fantastic episode learning about the highs and lows of relocating to the Costa del Sol from real people who have been through the journey themselves and, of course, our wonderful experts. If you have been enjoying the show so far, remember to hit subscribe to the podcast and leave a rating or review.
We absolutely love hearing your thoughts. Please send any questions that you would like us to answer on the show to warner@wlcostaproperties.net. Or you can pop us a message on our socials, which are in the show notes. Remember, you can also visit the website www.wlcostaproperties.net.
See you on the next episode, and bye for now.
Bye-bye.